Okay, let's see if I didn't break anything. Testing 1, 2, 3. Blah de blah blah. Is everything working? That seems to be working. Music seems to be working. Alright. We can go live and hang out for a little bit. Test, test, test. Whoop. Quit. Okay, I think everything's working. Here we go. Let me press this button, see how this works. Hey, there we are. Who do we have? Hello, Christopher John. Hello, Donald DeLay. Hello, Poncho Joe. Hello, Belle, how are you? Hey Eric, how are you? And ever since I was here last time, the advice you gave me inspired me and I just went balls to the wall drawing. That's awesome. That's great. That is brilliant. I'm glad you're hanging out. We're gonna wait, what, another 5 minutes or so and then I can start drawing? What do you think? Hey George, how are you? Hi Eric, love your work. Finally caught a stream. Thank you for being here. Thank you for the kind compliment. Appreciate your company, pal. Hey, Belle, is there still like an echo? Or actually, chat, is there still that echo from yesterday? I know there's only a handful of us in here so far. So we're going to keep the stream nice and intimate and small. And hopefully people don't walk in randomly. Okay. Yeah, that was a weird thing yesterday, wasn't it? I kind of had it all tuned up and ready to go 2 nights previous. No issues. I don't know what button I pressed. Is that music overwhelming in the background? Can you guys hear it? I think it should be. I didn't touch anything since Monday. So everything should be okay. I fixed my sound. Aww. Thanks for being so proud of me. Okay, can we start drawing? Especially since nobody's in here yet. I mean, except for us. Can I just start drawing? Is that a good idea? That way I can get a jump start. Hey, William, how are you? Thank you for being here. Thank you for joining me, pal. S2H, what size are your pages on Procreate, and do you do pixels or inches? Great question. The size is 11 by 14, and I think it's at 400 dpi, and it's set up to be. You know what? We can look together, shall we? I'll look just very briefly. Canvas information. Okay, so the physical width and height is 11 by 17, standard ledger size if this was traditionally done. DPI is at 400 and pixel width is 4400 by 6800. There you go. Hope that was helpful. I don't hear any music, probably for the best because YouTube will mute the replay if it's copyrighted music. Don't worry, Donald. I actually have a license to play all the music that's playing in the background. So maybe we can wrap it up like this. Hello? Hey, there we go. I mean, I'm paying for it. I might as well play it, right? Doesn't make any sense. Why did you decide to draw digitally for Arcathena? You're losing money because you don't have any physical pages to sell as a perk. Oh, Hugh, don't remind me. But mostly because it allowed me to have it allowed me to work faster, and really time is of the essence. Considering that my day-to-day is filled with a standard 9 to 5. I have family that I have to go hang out with, and on top of everything else, I couldn't. It was very difficult to accommodate a traditional art pipeline. Yes, I'm sacrificing the fact that there are no original pieces of art that I could attach to a tier as a higher tier or a higher bracket to offer once the crowdfunding starts. But I figured I could supplement that by actually generating pieces of art that are traditional, and that I think that would be at a better premium because there isn't a lot of art out there. So anyway, yeah, don't remind me. That's a very, very good point. But yeah, I gotta say that I was looking at your old Twitter posts, and that Batman with his shades open was really cool to me. Hey, thanks for going back that far and checking it out. I appreciate that compliment. Glad to be here. Got to get my... For the longest time, I thought, and this was back in the Twitch days, I thought that said Asimer, and I don't know what the heck Asimer is. Charo, how are you? I'm doing fine, thank you for asking. It is 8 p.m. local time, so I think by way of my energy bank, since I've been up since 4 o'clock in the morning, I have about an hour and a half, 2 hours left in me before I completely fade away and pass out. Copyrighted, pretty sure my Benadryl kicked in or I'm just a dummy. Either is believable. Are you talking about in regards to the music? I'll be copyright struck. I'm actually paying for the license for the music to be playing in the background. So I think I'll be okay. But thanks, man. I appreciate the good looking out. Page One Comics, hello. You know what, Page One, I was watching your stream earlier, man. Truth be told, I caught the end of it. You were signing off already, and I think you were digitally inking a spiral page, and you were wishing happy birthday to one of your chat members, unless that wasn't your channel. Forgive my fuzzy memory, but I think I peeked into your chat earlier, so good job, dude. That's looking good so far. People tell me I'm ASMR when I stream or that I have a relaxing voice. Right on. Okay, I will draw. I promise. How's everybody's evening? Today, what was today about? Today was playing catch up with everything. So the issue, and I was just talking to somebody offline about this, was the multiple hats that I have to wear. All art related, so it's not as abrasive, not as painful, but all the hats that I have to wear in order to get ARC Athena up and running and off the ground, not the least of which, incentivizing and then generating the newsletter list via email. And that has been wearing on my mind. I really want this thing to go off without the hitch, and I want to thank you guys ahead of time for all the support that you guys have shown me so far. I appreciate that. But yeah, it's all the business of thinking about launching the campaign, all the strategy and the pre-planning leading into the campaign, as opposed to just like good luck. I don't have this sort of built-in audience as a lot of my comic book contemporaries, because I don't do comics full time, right? There's some guys who can just go on notoriety, pedigree, and obviously work history to help usher a bunch of new people and awareness to their campaigns. I don't have that advantage. So I'm really trying to build an awareness and then ultimately a community for people to how would you say, like a community, so that they're people who know about the work. So that goes under the awareness part, right? So that has been weighing pretty heavily on my mind, to do that correctly, and how to do it so that it's hard for me to judge. There is no immediate, tangible, objective metric that my effort, as excited as I am about the stuff that I'm generating, is going to translate into excitement for people who are following the work, or potential people who could support the campaign, back the campaign. So it's hard, like I'm thinking about my headspace as far as what gets me excited about the type of comic books that I want to make, the sort of spirit that I'm trying to tap into back when I was super enthusiastic to pick up comic books month in and month out. And so I'm trying to infuse that into the campaign. But like I said, there's no objective way to know until I hit that launch button. And hopefully, if I did my job correctly, I had the support of you kind people backing me up. So I appreciate that. Kilson, love your work, man. Happy to see you active on YouTube. I'm trying to be, and this is just, another component of that, for the lack of a better term, like awareness campaign, starting to be streaming and also uploading videos is another opportunity to sort of get into the public eye, so to speak. Because again, it's like the traditional, how would you call this? Traditional infrastructure of mainstream comic books is that most of the heavy lifting by way of advertising and by proxy, people know who you are as a creator because it's being done by the publishing company. I don't have that advantage, right? And to truth be told, I don't know if I could leverage it all that well because I've never worked in the comic book industry consistently. So this is another way to be able to do that. And I think it's going to be up to me to sort of just like, that's good. I won't look at it as, oh, darn, missed, I don't have that available to me. It's more like, okay, well, I don't have it available to me, so what can I do? And I think this is a pretty remarkable tool in order to reach out to a bunch of different people, connect with them, Chauncey, how are you? That was me. Thanks for stopping by. You have to be on as a guest. Tomorrow we are having Dave Finch on. That's right. You announced it. You announced that today. I heard that. Good luck, man. I hope. I suspect that between Dave and Meredith, you guys are gonna have a grand old time. So have fun. On comics, I'm reading the old Chris Claremont and John Byrne and Kenny Axman. Really good. Yeah, that's the other thing. Again, offline conversations. I was talking about how, and this isn't a harsh criticism, it's more of a question that I bring up to people, in that when we celebrate the current mainstream comics, whatever titles that you're into, and we are so overly critical about the ones that are done poorly, and then we celebrate the ones that are done well, the question that I posed to my friend was, do we celebrate the ones that are done well because it's all we've come to know and everything out there is just done at such a mediocre level? I think that's a valid question, right? Like you go, everything is suboptimal. I'll be kind and say like unimpressive. And so when we do find one that's like, whoa, that's exceptional, is it ultimately really exceptional? Or is it just because by contrast, it's like, well, at least it's not that thing that's not as good. And the reason why I bring that up is for the reason that you're talking about, Joe, is that I grew up in an era in which you could turn into any of the, I grew up a Marvel kid, right? So you could turn it down how would you say it? Like you could look at any family of books within the Marvel publishing tree and just be blown away by everyone's effort. So you go down this side and you have like the Avengers books and that's being done well. You go down this avenue and you see the Spider-Man set of books and all of those are being done well at some level of like proficiency and excellence, right? And then you go down the X-Men route and you're like, holy cow, those are also done well and being written at such a high caliber. So it almost like, and this counts for nothing except my subjective perspective. I grew up spoiled on really, really amazing books, and there were books that I didn't particularly care for. I'll shrug and be like, it's not really for me. But it didn't make them any less exceptional. Does that make sense? So that's an interesting concept. And Taz, how are you? Good evening. Thank you for being here, bud. Appreciate it. Benjamin Boston, how are you? Cool name. Thank you for coming back for another round. Unhinged Entertainment, how are you? Thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. Did I already say hello, Chauncey? I don't know if I missed your name, but I'm gonna double up on saying hey just in case. You're ditching Bancroft. Don't do that. Michael has done a phenomenal job building that community and building sort of, I think, a pretty great level of excitement for whatever it is that he's talking about, and ultimately for Lucent, his crowdfunded book. I'm excited for him. You know, Page One, you're doing an amazing job for me. I think I owe you money. I don't know exactly the etiquette of YouTube. I streamed on Twitch for a little while, but that was a long time ago, and I always knew what to say in regards to like helping to grow the audience, obviously helping to grow subscribers list and so on. But I don't know. First of all, I'm out of practice, and then secondly, I don't know the etiquette for YouTube to be like, hey, if you're not subscribed to my channel already, click that subscribe button, blah, blah, blah. But thank you for getting ahead of that. I appreciate it. Yeah, with X-Men, I just got to say they got fricked over for the last few decades. Marvel has fricked over the X-Men, so they won't give Fox any story. I don't know, the behind-the-scenes politics, and it's unfortunate that any sort of exciting stories are being curbed because of elements that are out of your control. You know, that's beyond the purview of publishing. That really, really sucks, you know? Okay, 20 minutes into the stream, I haven't drawn. Perfect. Yeah, tell everyone to like and sub and share. They'll get a granted, that's probably what the. I'll just try my best to say thank you for your guys' support, and if you haven't done so already, subscribe to my channel. It'll be fun. I hope. Is this the place for dank memes? I've never gotten used to that word dank. So maybe it's not the place for dank memes. Maybe memes? I'm trying to remember if I know the definition of the word dank, and I don't know if I do. Dank, like a dungeon, right? Like a wet, disgusting, moist dungeon. Is this the place for a wet, disgusting, moist meme? Maybe. Watching you and Kim Jung-gi draw makes me want to draw again. I've been flaking lately. Hey, listen, anybody who watches Kim Jung-gi draw it can make anybody feel inferior. I remember we were invited to go to, a few friends of mine were invited to go to a show in Bologna in Italy. And one of their guests was also Kim Jung-gi, so naturally the guests of the show were invited to go to dinner with each other that first night. And we had an opportunity to hang out with him. As a matter of fact, I was like like a foot and a half, just chit-chatting with him. And thankfully, he knew of my work and I didn't embarrass myself too well. But we had an opportunity to, he had his bag with him, as he always says, and inside was this sketchbook, and we had an opportunity to take a look at some of those originals, and it's mind-blowing how good that guy is. Yeah, it's just mind-blowing. Is there Christmas music playing? Can we skip the Christmas music? I'm gonna skip this. Woo! Kilson, hey, what have you been enjoying lately as far as TV and games? Oh gosh, man. What have I been watching recently? I just watched, well, not just, but let's say about a month ago, Raised by Wolves on HBO, which is a kooky little show. No games, no video games. I'm sort of this, I can get pretty obsessive compulsive whenever I get into like video games, and I have zero time to get caught up in anything else as I'm trying to produce these pages, you know? So it would be poor if I got obsessed with another video game. The last thing that I played, so now if anything I just let somebody else play it and play it on YouTube and live my life vicariously through them. So no video games, just TV. I don't know if I've watched a series lately that, look at that. That's how effed up my brain is. I don't even remember. Watch Charlie Snuggins draw with both hands at the same time. You'll want to quit. That is a good shtick, man. I'm into it. I started buying comics when the Image 7 were on the rack simultaneously, so my standards are on another level in regards to finding good comics. You know, that's the other thing. I was, gosh, I don't know who I talked to a handful of people offline about my overall, my plans and my overall nervousness about launching this campaign, launching these books. And a topic came up, a topic that I brought up was like, and I'd been thinking about it for a while, that there has been, for the past 3 years, there has been this amazing infusion of people crowdfunding their campaign, but I feel like that momentum has like slowed somewhat, or not, slowed's not the right word. How would you say it? What's the best way I can describe it? Imagine, I'm going to use this awful analogy, so bear with me. So like, imagine if you're driving down the road in a countryside road, and out of nowhere, for the very first time in your life, you see a cow, right? And you're like, holy crap, look at that. That is so freaking amazing, right? Like black and white, cow with black spots, or cow with white spots. I don't know how the spots go. But like the first time that you see it, it's like great. But the further down the road that you drive, you start seeing more of that, because you come to realize like this is that part of the stretch of highway in which there's like cow farms, you know? But the first time that you saw that cow, you're kind of like, whoa, that's phenomenal. I'd never seen anything like that. But eventually it starts to become normal. And I think, and that's the most clumsy way I can describe it, like, that's what comic book crowdfunding has somewhat turned into. It's been a normalized, for 3 years, it's become normalized. And the excitement has tapered somewhat because you've seen a bunch of cows. That's awful. Like, you've seen it, you know? You're like, nobody has taken the effort to go like, what is it that's going to reignite that excitement? So similar to, you know, Chauncey just said that they were talking, that they had their entry drug was the Image 7. I think that's what I'm talking about in as far as the reinvigorating of an industry where they're like, we laid down a lot of the, they had laid down a lot of the foundational work for the hype that was X-Men and Spider-Man, everything else that they helped to establish at the mainstream company. And then when they left, they were, and I described it like this, they were like an assault on your eyeballs, and I hope I can be that for this project. I know that's borderline arrogant, and I don't mean it to be that way. I really do want it to be, my intent is for it to be that aspirational, to be like, I really, really want that. I really want that. I really want people to look at the book and be like, oh, holy crap, that feels so, it's like candy for your eyeballs. You know what I mean? You just finished Raised by Wolves last night. It's an amazing show. I hope that they do more of it. I don't know how expensive it is. I don't know what kind of ratings they get, but it'd be great if we get another season of that. Andy, how are you? Can you talk a little about ARC Athena? What is it? As ever, I remain a big fan. Andy, thank you so much. You are brilliant, and thank you for being here. Before I answer that question, if you could please, and I know I don't have the commands yet to sort of like follow the professionals and the people who admire who come to visit. 2 nights ago when Dave Peterson dropped by, I couldn't drop a link for them, and Toy Galaxy was here as well, just for a hot minute the first night that I officially streamed. But if you could find your way to going to support Andy in a lot of his social media, you will not regret it. Good guy, great artist. So ARC Athena is, and I don't have the Hollywood pitch yet, so forgive me if I stumble through this, right? ARC Athena is the team that an organization, a huge organization, puts in front of the world so that they can stay pacified, so that the world believes that it is being protected, right? But ultimately, they are not the people who are saving your lives. It's actually a completely other team, the one that gets to do awful, murderous things so that you can stay safe. But there's 2 things, right? Like, and I don't know if you guys walk with me on this awful analogy trip again. I think a sense of safety, I akin it to something like the TSA. Oh God, if any of you guys out there are TSA, please forgive me. Don't send me any hate mail. But like, it's been well documented that the TSA, in as far as its effectiveness, has been subpar. Can I say that? Is that too overtly harsh, right? But the TSA has been set up so that it gives you a feeling of safety. Right? It's more about the appearance of security as opposed to actual security itself. And sometimes you need those things so that as a society, you can feel like things are functioning well, and that's what ARC Athena is. Does that make sense? I used to play so many obscure JRPGs. Now it's Mario, Yoshi, Zelda with the kids. Not bad. That's a good lineup. That's entertaining like you wouldn't believe. It's surprising how those franchises that you just mentioned have so much replay value and high levels of entertainment value. And it's not the kind of thing that you would think, as an adult you'd be into. But, you get me running around with Zelda, I'll pretty much disappear into that space for hours, if not days. 8-man, Ethan Van Skyver. What's that question? Is Ethan behind me? That'd be so funny. If I just turn and then like Ethan's sitting in the chair behind me. What software are you using to stream with to share your screen on your iPad? It is called, great question. Thanks, Donna. It's called Air Server. Air Server. Really, really cool. Everything's wireless. It's just kind of dispersed. There's a lot of great crowdfunding comics these days. Yeah. A top cat. I'm behind on chat, so if I'm scrolling down to the versions of commentary that was in response to my chat, or the thing that I was talking about all of 5 minutes ago. So forgive me. I think there's just a lot of choices now in crowdfunding, and with more options comes a slowing of mass-funded campaigns. But it's good, but makes things tougher for creators, for sure. I agree with that. And I remember when there was that, I'll use my experience when I was going to San Diego Comic-Con an awful lot back in the day when it still felt like the Wild West. Anybody can start up a comic book company, or anybody with money started up a comic book company back then. And because of the popularity of the Image 7, there was this feeling that, oh, we could do that too. And they would just come every year and publish their own books. And rare did some of those guys come back the year after, because publishing books back then, especially if you were funding it, or if you were sort of like financing it yourself, was feasible but not inexpensive. So I know exactly where you're coming from. There is an infusion with a lot of different books out there and choices, but ultimately people still gravitated to the comfort and the things that they knew, and then ultimately the stuff that really blew their minds, Image 7 stuff. The honeymoon period is over. Oh, for sure. So it's kind of strange. Like I take that concept on, and I'm excited by it, because I feel like, in as much as there would have been sort of things that would have been in my favor if I had launched similar to when all the amazing sort of enthusiasm was coming in that first round, right? In the first round of crowdfunding. I think now I feel like the challenge is like, I'm going to do my very best to just knock your eyeballs out of their sockets, And I take that challenge on personally. Like, I'm excited by that opportunity. And there's no guarantee that I will, but the fact that it's like, okay, well, it's not going to be, as you said, the honeymoon period is over, so I'd better go do something. I better try my very best to do something phenomenal. And who's to say that it could be completely subjective, but it lights the fire under me. Don't have a cow, man. It's just crowdfunding cows. Good point. So many people didn't even know I had a book until after I ended my first campaign. Just a lot out there, and no names get lost in the crowd of big names. I think of myself as part of that no-name list, so I'm right there with you. And I have to say that I'm really lucky to have these amazing comics today, and these people on YouTube who give timelines for specific characters. Like I specifically got into comics with Batman Year One. Right on. There's a great channel for that, and Cartoonist Kayfabe. They have such a great time-traveling machine. Renan? How are you? You're 30 minutes late. You're doing this every other day. That's a great question. So I'm going to be doing this twice a week, Mondays and Wednesdays. I think is when I'm going to do this. The rest, I'm going to need an evening back for myself to just continue as much of these pages as I can. So thank you for being here at 30 minutes late, but we're just chatting. But that's a great question. Hello, Richard Pace. How are you? Eric, are you using Labs or OBS Studio? Also on YouTube, you can right-click on anyone's chat's name to make them a mod. Yep. I don't know if I can do that on this app that is feeding your guys' chat directly into a window. So the app that I'm using is something that is not as taxing as OBS Studio on a Mac. Like if you saw me launch OBS Studio, if I were to try to stream with OBS Studio on a Mac, because it's not optimized for Macs, OBS is such a resource hog, just an awful resource hog, and just causes my computer and the connection to stutter like you wouldn't believe. It just happens to be that there is a company out there that makes this app called Ecamm Live that is Mac exclusive, that is running so optimally, there hasn't been any sort of issues with it that I've had, but I've only streamed 3 times, so knock on wood, this maintains. I'm not TSA, but I like it. I get it. Dan's a good guy, and he's a funny dude, and he's led me through he's led me through a lot of insight and advice to how to make this stuff work. I've known him for a very, very long time. So I'm such a lucky SOB to be able to just, touch base with him and say like, hey, what's going on that end? Give me insight, It's a security placebo. It is, yeah, that's harsh. That's harsh. There's a lot of people who work very, very hard at that job. I'm sorry to have made an example out of them, but the point being is that that's what ARC Athena is. ARC Athena represents the feeling of solidarity and security. You implement it so that society believes that there is a version of heroism that they can cheer for. Well, maybe. Did you leave a pie out somewhere in your house? No pies. No pies. No pies in my house, or at least if there is one, I'm going to go eat it. I'm not sharing pies with anybody else. Arcathena sounds dope, character designs and concepts. Thank you so much, Chauncey. Thank you. I'm so excited for this first issue. It's taking all of my self-control. I remember when I first finished the first issue, and I showed it to my very close friends. And it was all I could do to not make that. Like, I showed them the finished. By the way, issue 1 is 48 pages. So I walked them through each and every single page of like what was happening. It was all I could do, not to do all the sound effects, not to be like, and then this happens, and then pew, 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 like a kid. And that to me, they were making fun of me, actually. I'm like, listen, they were saying, listen to this effing guy, listen to this dude get all up in his own, be so hyped up about his comics. And I thought like, wow, that's amazing, because I haven't been hyped up for, I haven't been that hyped about telling a story in comic book form in such a long time. And the fact that I'm so into it means like, God, well, first of all, it means that, okay, this feels good and there's a reason why I'm doing it. But also the other thing, I'm always waiting for the other shoe to drop. So I always think like, oh gosh, I hope I can maintain this momentum. I hope that this energy stays with me, because doing 5 issues of 40 plus pages per issue is not a sprint, it's a marathon. So I really hope that I have enough, to finish all 26 some odd miles, and not just blow all my energy in the first 5, 3 or 4 miles. You talked about crowdfund comic book projects. Then I said Ethan Van Sciver. Oh, yeah, jeez. That guy's efforts, he set such a very high bar in as far as what he's accomplished with his crowdfunding campaign. And the thing is, if there's any way for me to learn how to bottle that, what's the best way to explain, like how to emulate the sort of enthusiasm that he drives into his like fan base, into his like his supporters and his backers. I want to be able to understand what that is and hopefully emulate it in some capacity. Probably never as spectacularly as he does, because he's his own individual. He has all the stuff that he needs to in order to make his campaigns and his success work. I'm gonna have to find my version of that, but I admire primarily on the hustle, but also, I guess, by proxy and secondarily, the success that he's exhibited with his campaign. So that's awesome. Silver Ogre, how are you? Good evening. I think a sense of security and normalcy is so important to us, far more than we can imagine. We don't really feel that until it's gone. 100%. 100%. Now, if successful, you earned it, not just a hype writing. There's a part of me that wants that puts a little bit of that puts value into that too. That now that the hype is over, it's like the second round of Image Comics that came in that then tried to continue their legacy. I just hope that it prolongs and persists, because unlike a handful of the, is it safe to say 80? You guys tell me, okay, because you guys have a better understanding of the whole geography. Was like a lot of crowd-funded campaigns typically represent maybe just one book. There's a few out there that step outside of that sort of concept, but for the most part, it's one book, it's one issue, and then they find time to do it, and then they maybe, if there's opportunity there, they launch the second book, right? But ARC Athena is 5 issues, right? So I hope that through sort of involvement and, more importantly, the quality of the book, because that's ultimately what it comes down to. Yeah, hopefully the involvement of the readership, involvement of the backers and the fan base, and then ultimately the quality of the book will sustain it for 5 issues. Fingers crossed. Like the second skip with his stone, yeah. Yeah, that sort of momentum. I think that's what you're talking about, Christopher John. Iconic. Our dude, I'm so down to buy some of your work. Thank you so much. I appreciate that so much, so much. Important question. Who are you, a Jedi or a Sith? That's an important question. That's an important... I'm Jar Jar. I'm good, drawing away, listening to you, almost like Twitch, like the olden days, for sure. Jimmy, Eric, pronounce your last name for me. Oh, and promoting our first book, Dragon Rage, was a lot of work. I earned that marketing. The book is as much work as drawing the book, 100%. 100%. My last name is pronounced Kennedy. Kennedy. Eric Kennedy. You know what, Jimmy? I think I drew your character. Now that I think about it, I'll tell you a story. I was watching the How to Draw Comic Book .net guys, and not Clayton. Shoot, it always skips. They're like, I keep getting them mixed up, the brothers, but not Clayton. Like, he was drawing an image of your characters in it with like a dragon in the background and blah blah blah, and like everybody was like just bombarded. This was early, so I didn't feel comfortable just giving my opinion, and obviously he was just Corey. So Corey was drawing this image of your character, and they were just bombarding him with like. By the way, that was the most endearing thing, is that kid, and he, to me, he's a kid, right? I'm in my 70s. So like he was just taking it on the chin. He was trying to incorporate as much of the feedback while he's live drawing, and the level of pressure that must have been, and trying to concentrate, execute, but also incorporate. My gosh, I had a level of admiration for it. But it was hard for me to imagine. First of all, if I was comfortable enough and had been around, like I said, I was super early in my sort of like digging around for guys whose body of work I was like, whoa, that really looks cool. So I didn't feel comfortable going like, oh, you should shift it to the right. That was dumb. But so instead, I just drew it for myself, like how I would have given the notes to Corey to be like, I think here's the composition that you're not quite landing, and that I know that seems super arrogant. So Corey Clayton, if you see this later, please forgive me. I mean, you know harm. It was simply to go through the exercise for myself rather than talk about it on stream. If I had that privilege, which I didn't back in the day, like to be able to communicate what was in my head rather than talking about it, I drew it instead. But it's in this iPad, and I can show it to you in a second. You always get to blow my mind with your art. Everything you do is amazing. Hope you're having a great night. Ignacio, thank you so much. That is very, very kind of you. I can't tell you how flattering that is. I don't know if I could live up to it, but I want to thank you for it. Jim O'Reilly, hello. I love those 3 little circles, man. It's like you ramped up to saying hello. When there was chatter a few months back of someone big coming to IG, I had even said that it'd be cool if it was Kennedy or Trent. Both are here now. Cool, yeah. Trent is a tough act to follow. My working relationship with him has been so phenomenal, both primarily in video games, but now I think he wouldn't mind if I called him my friend. So not only is he a sort of a professional contemporary that I look to in as far as how to be a better businessman, but now as a fellow comic book artist getting into crowdfunding and Indiegogo, I have another person as a point of reference in as far as like how to do this more efficiently. So I'm so glad that he's here. He gives me a sense of comfort. I like comics with meaning behind it. Like with X-Men about race, it's really nice. I think it works well. This is just for me. Everybody else can have their sort of subjective opinion about this. What works well for me is to do it in such a way where they're not hitting you over the head with whatever social issues they decide to sort of like infuse the story with, right? So I think these days, for whatever reason, maybe it's because they don't trust the audience, maybe because I don't know why it's so it's so on the nose, the kind of stuff that they want to talk about. Maybe it's just the current climate, whatever. It just goes to show that some of the stuff that's out there right now isn't for me. That's okay. It's for somebody, I hope. It is a company. They need to pay bills. Anyway, the reason why the X-Men worked for me back then is because they weren't so heavy-handed. They weren't so like on the nose with the messaging, you know? I think that's what I garnered from like old Star Trek, episodes, was that everything was an analogy for something else and it was done creatively. Now I feel like it comes off from time to time, and I haven't read a lot of mainstream comics lately, but in the ones that I have read, when they were really sort of just like, here's what this is, and it's really super obvious what it is, it feels a little lazy, you know? Like they couldn't think themselves around the thing that they wanted to say. Instead, they just said like, blah, you know? It's painful. Again, not for me, so what do I know? I think Arcathena is more like public relations and community outreach division of police and military organizations. That's a good way of putting it. You know what's interesting about that, Silver? Thank you for that. Depending on who I talk to, and I think you were here the other night, right? Like depending on who I pitch ARC Athena to. Like I pitched it to my colorist Jules, and Jules has a different sort of nerddom, right? He has a different sort of geekery. So when I was pitching it to him, he would refer to anime. He'd be like, "Oh, have you ever seen this anime that has this, and this?" I'm like, "Nope." And he's like, "It kind of reminds me of this bit of Arcathena." I was like, "Oh, cool," you know. And then another person, who was it? Oh, they would say like, "Oh, it's kind of like The Boys, isn't it?" And I was like, "I guess so. It's similar to that." And it was comforting to me as a first-time writer that's tackling a miniseries to go like, oh, somebody made it work. I don't feel so bad. The formula is there, so I just need to go find that formula, understand why it works, and take comfort as like a warm blanket that I'll be able to write it well. So the analogy, the comparison that you made, yeah, I think that's close. Absolutely. Good evening, John Amore. John Amore is one of my close best friends, and he's paying me to say that. John Amore is actually an amazing confidant that I turn to whenever especially when in regard to this project, I turn to John. I'm like, does this make any sense? Is this going to work? And he's like, the only way you'll know if it'll work is just do it. Go have fun. And there's any time that I have any art question, like if I need a really objective pair of eyeballs in regards to anything art related, I put it in front of John and I go like, dude, is this is this dumb? And he is as straightforward as you can be, and I love having that in my close circle of friends. So thank you always, John. Erica, how can we help you maintain your momentum? I don't know. What an amazing question, and how very generous of you. I don't have a good answer. I don't have a good answer to go like, okay, put this on your pocket and then walk around. I don't know. I don't have a good answer except to say thank you. Thank you for being on this stream. Thank you for keeping me company. It sounds super cheesy, but I think right now, as I'm starting up this sort of like awareness campaign for the book, you being here is an amazing first step. And I don't think I have it in me to ask any more of you than that. So thank you. Your work is so fantastic and unique. I think you'll do sensational with crowdfunding. Oh gosh, I'm gonna try not to jinx it, Jim. But thank you. That's awesome. I'm going to. Who was I? I was just talking to somebody about the concept of. I had mentioned that I was going to do crowdfunding. They're like, "Oh, you have a name, you'll be okay," and that scares the crap out of me just to think of it that way, because it's almost like I have contemporaries out there, and not to use them as a point of reference, but I think if there is something that I've come to recognize, that in the current climate that we're in, we can't exclusively depend on the cachet of name recognition alone. There really is something to be said about building that community, building a really, really good awareness for your book, and then ultimately, oh gosh, forgive the term, but like infecting people. That sounds awful. Infecting people with the kind of enthusiasm that you feel for your project, right? Like I don't know how to make that a communicable thing, but I think that's left to the individual, independent of my notoriety, right? I don't want it to just be like, oh, he's the guy that used to do X, Y, and Z for whatever thing, you know? I want to assume, and that's the reason why earlier in the chat, when somebody had mentioned, like, you know, here I am, not necessarily having a name, but, you know, as things are slowing down, it's harder and harder for people who don't have as much of a name as the big names out there to get any sort of like attention and traction. The best way that I can keep myself humble is to assume that nobody knows me and my body of work. So contact Ethan Van Sciver on Twitter. He's a cool dude and respects good art, and you're really good. Maybe you can join his YouTube live streams. He can help you boost more eyes on your comic. That's a great suggestion. That is a great suggestion. I am always up for it. Like, I am always in for learning from people's successes. And if somebody like Ethan, who has this sort of to say that it is astounding, is underrepresenting what he's done with Cyberfrog. If there's anything that he can point me towards and be like, try this, you know, I'm all ears for that kind of stuff. Where am I going to sell my comic? It's going to be crowdfunded via Indiegogo, because I like their business model more than I like what's going on in Kickstarter. There's risks on both sides, but I would rather, and I just showed the number of what this book costs up front, because if you remember, I don't know if you know anything about crowdfunding, so forgive me if you do, bear with me, but most crowdfunding campaigns that I see generate X amount of pages up front, launch their campaign, and when their campaign gets funded, that's when they start working on the book. Excuse me. I'm going the other way. I am going to produce all of the pages first, all 220 some odd plus pieces of art, plus the covers, plus all the promo material first, and then launch the first campaign. And the reason why I'm doing that is because what's happening with current crowdfunding, and I think it can be mitigated, is that sometimes some of the delivery from the time the campaign ends to the time the backers get their books, it's about like 8 months. 8 months is an average. When I kind of ran through the numbers, is about 8 months, and sometimes longer, because naturally, and you can't blame them for this, life just gets in the way. You know, life stuff gets in the way, and so sometimes it'll take a year. You know, and I want to just minimize. My goal with my crowdfunding campaign is to just narrow that delta as much as possible. Like, I want from end of campaign to the time the backer gets their hands on their book, about 3 months. Take 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks off, then launch issue 2. That campaign ends in about 30 some odd days, and at the end of that campaign, 3 months thereafter, you're holding on to issue 2. And continue momentum like that until everything is delivered to you, all 5 issues. Speaking of somebody that I reached out to, the important thing to remember with crowdfunding is that you don't want to try and build a crowd after you've launched. You want a crowd to already be waiting and anticipating. Speaking of somebody that I reached out to, you want to talk about a stellar businessman and a very giving human being. Pete, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your time to extend yourself. I know your daily calendar must be insane, but the fact that you made time for me, thank you so much. I appreciate that. I should start. Oh, an hour and I haven't drawn yet. All right, I was talking about this 5 minutes ago. I will, Jimmy. Hold on. In 2 minutes, I'm gonna launch the program, and we can all painfully look through that image together. Too many creators that fail end up acting coy and secretive. They don't include the crowd and engage them. Be open about it and put your stuff out there in advance, just like you're doing now, Eric. Yeah, that's another thing. I reached out to Jimmy Palmiotti, and Jimmy was like, put out art. Like, make people aware that you are drawing a book. Don't worry about like people stealing it. Don't worry about any and all of that. Make people aware that you are producing work and that you are looking for be clear about what it is. You know, you are crowdfunding. It's gonna launch at this date. Set up that expectancy so that everybody's like, oh yeah, it's sometime a little bit after summer, ARC Athena is coming up, and I want to be so hyped and ready for it. But also make sure that be as not transparent per se, but like informative. If somebody asks like, what's this about? What's that about? Like, tell them, you know? The only thing I pushed back on was like some people don't want the story to be spoiled, you know? So I'm careful to be like, I want you to be able to read it, to have the experience of having it in your hand and being like, oh, holy shit, that feels really, really good, or that sucks. But anyway, I hope you say, oh, holy shit, this is really, really good. I'll support the next one. Yeah, like Magneto's supposed to be Malcolm X. Yep, that's a great analogy. And that was, you know, I don't know. That's what I prefer. I don't want to throw shade on how things are being done now. The best thing that I can say is that it's just not for me, so I'm not going to spend any money on that. It was social issues, but also space pirates and giant robots. Yeah, for sure. There's a fair balance of like addressing things subtextually, but also giving you something to look at because it's a freaking visual medium. Why not? Arcathena, do you have a plan on doing anything comic related after ARC Athena? I know that's a big future ball. Oh gosh, I can't even think further than August/September of this year, because that's when I plan on tying up all 5 issues, black and white wise, right, for Arcathena. At that point, I'm handing everything over to Jules, who's going to be coloring it, hopefully like a madman, and then, you know, in tandem, Eric Weathers is going to be lettering it and getting it ready for pre-press. So I can't even think anything beyond this year, you know, this year, September. And if you have earning time, you should read the new X-Men run, House of X and Powers. Everyone is recommending that. I accidentally walked into whatever the most recent X event was. I think they all had like a bunch of swords. They all had different swords, and I am really, really sorry, but I could not be bothered reading more than 3 issues. I got 3 issues into it, and I was like, oh, not for me. And I think that should be okay, that it's not for me after reading. And that's not a slight on whatever. It's for somebody. It's just not for me. You are super important, John. Oh, by the way, speaking of your importance, guys, if you are not following John's work on his most recent creator-owned book, you can find it on Webtoons, and it's called Urban Animal, URBAN. Urban Animal. Can you talk about your approach to writing? My approach to writing is, oh God, I hope this works. My approach to writing is, especially in regards to comic, and I'll tell you it's not a secret. It's actually a very useful tool for me in regards to establishing a true north, right? First of all, I write generally in plot, in like, you know, quick plot form, bullet points, right? And then And then typically I try to make things into a standard 3x structure because I work in animation, and that's kind of how my brain works is in 3x structures. But in comics, it's a little bit different. You can stretch it out a little bit more. It doesn't cost a ton of money to make a scene really, to just sit with a scene and characters for a little bit. But then with each issue, and you guys will see this in ARC Athena, the premise of that issue is being said by somebody within the first 2 or 3 pages. Like, they literally say the premise of the issue. I mean, they don't like break fourth wall and be like, in this issue we're gonna fight bad guys, or in this issue we talk about inequality, or whatever it is. They don't do that, but it sets up the premise for what the texture of the issue is going to be, themes of the issue is going to be, and then it all ties it up in about in 5 issues, hopefully. And more than anything, I use that as a re-register. So if I'm ever writing something dialogue-wise that doesn't help stand up that theme or that premise, I have to go back and be like, okay, this doesn't make sense for this issue. I need it to be able to say this, right? And so it's a way for me to hone the dialogue so that it helps a little bit more. Like that smash button, share the link, hit the subscribers button look at Jim O'Reilly. Thank you, man. I appreciate that. Unhinged, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate your company. Viral anticipation by community participation. That's a lot of anticipation. I feel like YouTube is going to be the next comics community in crowdfunding. Seeing many more artists going the comics community on here. Yeah. It's something that I had spoken about way back on Twitch, in Twitch days. Like, we had extended conversations about, like, why won't more creators come onto a live streaming platform, whether it be Twitch or YouTube or where else, right? And the answer is, and it's a weird muscle that you have to flex in order to be able to engage with people on stream. Have you ever seen those those old school acts where people are like spinning plates on stage? It's really that, and not many artists, unsurprisingly, not many artists do well in an environment in which they have to engage with chat and do something entertaining as much, or something as simple as drawing and talking to chat at the same time. They don't function that way. I think it's a lack of social graces in such a way. Like, I mean, you see it all the time too. Like, if you guys remember conventions, like, if you guys go through a convention floor, there's a lot of artists that don't know how to engage with somebody who's at their table trying to take up, just trying to say, hey, I'm a big fan of yours. They don't know how to make them feel like, I'll tell you a perfect story in regards to what I'm talking about. San Diego Comic-Con, Jim Lee is who he is, and he was my boss back when I worked at Wildstorm. So he and I have a professional history with each other. And he was at a signing at the DC booth at the time, and like, he sits down and somehow like the crowd just builds around him because he's freaking Jim Lee, right? And there was a person helping to mitigate and coordinate the crowd. His name was Larry. Larry and I go back a little while, but he kind of has the headset on, and he's working the DC booth and all that kind of stuff. I was like, hey, Larry, how are you? Catching up with him. I hadn't seen Jim in 2.5 years, maybe less. But anyway, I just wanted to say hi to him. But there was no way I'm going to take up Jim's time with like what looked like 100+ people at this DC booth, all trying to get his signature. I can't remember if it was right at the end of like the Superman run that he was doing, or is it like right at the end of Hush. But the hype was big, so people were just trying to get his attention, trying to get his signature on something. And I'm not the kind of guy that's like, hey, I'm a professional, I'm going to cut in front of like these amazing fans that are waiting for your time and signature and just an opportunity to chit chat with you. So I just said, hey, Larry, if he has time, I just want to say hi to him. If not, it's totally cool. Larry was so cool. He was just like, yeah, hold on a second, So he like taps Jim on the shoulder. And mind you, again, 100+ people just waiting for Jim Lee. And like, Jim goes from like, imagine he's like talking to a fan like this, like, hey, that's great, that's great. And Larry whispers into his ear, hey, you know, Eric, blah, blah, blah. And he turns to me, and Jim had this amazing superpower of just like making me feel like everything has blurred. Everything has blurred in the background. And like these 100, 200, 500 people over here don't exist. And he's just talking to me. Right now, mind you, out of professional courtesy, I didn't want to take up of his time. I just wanted to say, hey, you're awesome. You know, thank you so much for hiring me, blah, blah, blah. How are you doing? How's your family? Blah, blah, blah. And then I got out of there. But Jim had that thing, right? And you can tell when he's streaming, you can tell that Jim knows how to engage well, but not every artist knows how to do it, right? So to answer your question of like, or to make a point about the thing that you were saying, which is like, you know, hey, I'm seeing a lot more people come to Twitch. I'm seeing a lot more people sort of like, you know, come to these platforms in which there's an opportunity for them to engage. There's a whole lot more that don't, because they don't know how to be, you know, how to be a super powered person like Jim Lee, right? They don't have that talking skill, the gift of gab. Hello, Rob. There's so many people that I don't think I will ever be able to thank them enough for the kindness that they've shown me when I first said, hey, I want to try doing this crowdfunding thing. Rob Arnold. See, I remember your last name this time, Rob. By the way, if you don't know already, Rob has a book, a book called Replicator. You can find it on Indiegogo. I wish I had these cues, or I wish I had these links all queued up for you. Forgive me. Go find it, support him. It's going to be amazing. I saw the art. I'm super excited for him, super proud of him for doing it. It seems like it's a stellar success. Congratulations, Rob. But to that point, you know, Rob, again, another person like Pete, like Jimmy Palmiotti, like everybody else that I've reached out to, like, they just said, how can we help? What, like, insane to me. That the people are that encouraging and so selfless with their time. So like, yeah, man, we want to help. How can we help? So thank you, Rob. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate that. I swear I'm going to catch up to chat. If you need someone to come on, let me know. I'm tempted to sculpt cable from one of my. Oh my gosh! I will give you I will give you your hand cramps if you try to do that cable. It's so much BS detail on that thing. I don't know if it was you or Tony Daniel that split the pages of. Huh? Was it? I think it was Tony. I'm not that creative. As here, I'm not that creative. Might as well just wrench Jim O'Reilly now. You think I should? Hello, Billy Baxo. How are you? Hockey, hello. Thank you for being here. Just record yourself drawing first, then play that during your live streams. You can take. You deserve money for coming up with that idea. I borrow ideas. How are you? Thank you for being here. I really, really appreciate it. Hello, everyone. Okay, I'm going to catch up with stream. I'm scrolling down, and then I'm going to be able to show Jimmy Reyes the Dragon Rage image that I did. I love that hashtag. I love that hashtag so much. Oh, Biggs, how are you? Michael T, hello. Did I tweet out that I was live? Yes? Yes-ish? I'm poor. I'm poor when it comes to my own. Okay, I'm caught up. Look, I'm at the bottom of the I'm at the bottom of the chat. I don't know if it was Tony. Yeah. Okay, here we go. Jeez Louise. How long has it been? An hour and 10 minutes. I get to finally art. Here we go. Let's hope this works. where did I put that? Jimmy, I lied to you. Okay, so here's the original image that I think I was trying to figure out based on what Corey was doing on stream. Right? Corey had like, I can't remember what people were like, make that background red, make this blue, make this blah, 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 blah. And I was like, oh man, I don't even know the answer right now because I need to think about it while I'm drawing, you know? And so again, it had only been maybe the third stream that I was watching those guys. I didn't feel, it wasn't in my place to be like, oh yeah, you should do this, you know, like try this instead. It was, I was doing my very best to stay as close to that far back wall as possible and just, you know, just be an observer, you know? But it wasn't an interesting space that Corey had put himself into compositionally. But the thing that was throwing me off was that we were talking about color already, and I don't know if value-wise he had landed it yet. And that's how I always think. It's not to say that's the answer to everything. But I remember, like, value-wise, there's a reason why nothing is popping. And they weren't. So I even ran into the buzzsaw of that value concept, right? Which is like, I started painting based on my understanding of what was on screen, not necessarily looking at like reference. And then I realized I'm doing the same BS, you know, like I'm getting caught up in the nooks and crannies of the line art rather than landing value and light source and, you know, light hierarchy and legibility, right? And so I stopped doing this one. Like, I don't know how many layers there is. There's only one. I stopped doing that one, and instead I went back and did the value of it first. See that? Can you see that? Okay. And I still didn't do it right. Like, I got as far as the rough sketch, and then I stopped because I was like, oh, that I landed the value. I think I was getting close to landing the value, and then I started messing up the pose and the proportion legibility, which is always these sliders that I'm dealing with, you know, like, okay, now the value and the grayscale is okay. Does it still read as a person's thigh, you know, like, I don't know. It's problematic, and I stopped because obviously I needed to move on to the thing I don't know how many layers this is. This has got to be like, yeah, that many layers. I got as far as this, put it down, and then like a lot of it is still off. And so I went back and started adding layer upon layer upon layer upon layer. So I try to fix it, and that is bad because that's no longer sort of like, it's no longer this space of like, I'm in recovery mode. Does that make sense? Rather than just like feeling good and adding to it, like adapting. That's the word I'm looking for. I wasn't in a space of like adaptability where it's like, ooh, that feels good. I'm changing it, but it feels good and blah, blah, blah. Like the design really feels good, which happens with a lot of, that's like the flow that you get into when you're drawing, right? Like, ooh, that feels good. I changed it, but it still feels good. I was in recovery mode with this painting, and rather than trying to salvage it, rather than like, oh, I need to, whatever, right? Like, I was moving it incrementally left and right, and I hate that because it means I didn't do enough front-end work structurally before I started rendering. There you go. I'm going to watch the rest tomorrow. Good night, all. Peace. Thanks, Ogre. Have a good night. Thank you for being here. You like the dragon a lot. Yeah, I was like, I'm not even... The dragon was like the last thing on my brain. Like, the dragon is a compositional element that just helps helps like laying down like the light of her head, the highest point of contrast, onto something super dark, so your eye goes there immediately. And I didn't land that very well. Anyway. Okay. Let's show you guys Rob's character. I I love drawing this thing. I had so much fun drawing that character. And the reason why, and I was trying to think about why it was so much fun to draw, because I'm such a huge Metal Gear Solid fan. I was such a big nerd for Metal Gear Solid, and Rob's character just reminds me of, was it Metal Gear Solid 4, when a lot of the antagonists were women who had, like, one was a hawk, one was an octopus, one was a... I just loved it. So when I first saw Rob's character, I was like, and especially when I started rendering it, I was like, oh, it's so much fun. I mean, I'm sure it's not exactly like Metal Gear, but the feeling that I got when I was rendering the piece. By the way, your artist draws this helmet with such a level of confidence and proficiency, Rob. I don't know how they did it, because as I was looking at the image, I was like, or the reference, I was like, there's no way I could draw this correctly. There's no way I could draw this on model, quote unquote, on model. The last thing that I had worked on, and it's similar to my entire process, is just landing hierarchy and building my value correctly so that when I color it, it becomes so much easier. So this is a cover that I just, I finished the color version of it for IDW, but this is Serpentor. And I was supposed to work on this on Monday, but I'd done enough work on it that I felt like I could just move on and do ARC Athena related stuff. As I should be doing tonight, but I finished it the other day. Started adding color, finished 2 versions of it, sent it off to the publisher and let them choose. Okay, now can I draw? I'm gonna draw now, I promise. Hey, can I show you guys what the 3D statue looks like that we're going to be giving away to a possible random newsletter sign up? Here we go. This is me giving notes back to the 3D modeler, and those are the only things that they missed after they had modeled it all out. Isn't that great? We're gonna 3D print this and get it out to you as a random winner. It's gonna be about 6 inches, about yay big, 6 inches. I don't know if it's gonna come assembled. I'm not exactly sure, but we're doing 3 of them. Leading into the first campaign. There is no sign-up link so far, Jim O'Reilly. I'm sorry. I'm waiting until 3 months before. So if I'm launching in September, right? August, July, June, beginning of June, guaranteed website's going to be up. All the email collecting is going to start. So average size, yes. Well, not for me so much, but yes. I'm much smaller. I wish I was more average. Okay, now we're drawing. Is it this? Yeah. What was I working on the other day while we were all on stream together? Was it this image? Yeah, whew, that took forever. Surprisingly, something this simple takes so damned long, but I finally finished it. Eric Weathers is going to be pissed. I didn't leave any room for dialogue. Thank goodness it's digital. That holds up, right? Don't zoom in. Zooming in is dumb. Zooming in, the line falls apart. And I finished this this morning. Oops. I finished that this morning. And you're not going to believe how long it took to render this stupid crater. But I really wanted to land scale, right? So the bad guy, to give you context on why there's a giant crater. You guys care? You're going to get to see the bombastic version of this, okay? So the bad guys have 3 giant mechs / kaiju, right? and each of them can do a very specific thing. This one in specific, this kaiju mech can turn. This is my tribute to Go Nagai and Mazinger Z, an old school 70s anime. This one can turn into a giant fucking drill. Arcathena is so ridiculous. It is so dumb and fun. And it just makes me go like, what do I want to draw today? Oh, I want to draw a giant 1970s robot that turns into a drill. And so it starts to drill inside that city. See that? It's exactly like Grandizer. I can show you one of the character designs that you'll look at it and you go like, that is John still in chat? Who did you say that it looked like, John? The design for Grenadier? You mentioned somebody and I was like, and so there's a shot where it's just like, by the way, I've looked at reference for like boring machines. This giant drill thing doesn't work. It's unrealistic, but neither are freaking aliens like superheroes. But anyway, it just starts drilling, and these dummies have to go stop it. And so that gives context to that giant hole in the ground. What I really love, at least in the old school, I don't know if you guys are not going to know who this is. So if you guys do, congratulations, bonus points to you. But what I really loved in those old school X-Men, there's a favorite artist of mine that I wish I could draw as well as, and it's a funny story why he did this style. There's an artist for the X-Men called Paul Smith. Now Smitty, I call him Smitty because, you know, I've had the opportunity to get to know him. But like, in order for him to draw monthly comics, he had to do a style. X-Men back then was actually monthly, right? One artist doing it month in and month out. And I don't know how John Byrne did it because John Byrne had so much detail. But in order for Paul Smith to do X-Men monthly, he had to defer to a style that was so much simpler than what he wanted to draw like back in the day, which was, Alex... I forgot who the artist that he would have preferred to draw as. But so he had to go into this quote unquote animation style. The thing that Paul Smith knew how to land was acting, right? He knew how to make his people emote, and he couldn't hide behind lines, which I think is for some artists these days is just a deficit. You know, like I'm reading the dialogue that they're talking about, the thing that they're saying, I'm really sad, I'm really happy, I'm really concerned, or blah, blah, blah. Like, but the drawing doesn't support the dialogue. And Paul Smith, without being able to hide behind, 5,000 lines like I do, knew how to land like great acting. And I've always wanted to do that for my book. So anytime that I had an opportunity to do like a talking scene, I always find the core or the crux of the thing that they're talking about and try to understand each character. So there was an opportunity, especially in this issue, which one of the characters has huge reservations, and that's saying it mildly, huge reservations and the level of self-awareness to go like, I don't think we should be out here. Like, this is way beyond anything that we are capable of handling. And I love being able to infuse that character with that kind of acting. And do it in such a way where it's not even the point of focus, like she's not even the point she's not even the point of the panel. Like there's people typically, the people who are talking are the point of focus of the panel. But I love putting those side characters and they're acting and they're being real people, which is something I completely stole from Paul Smith. I love doing that kind of stuff. Okay, I'm gonna draw. What am I drawing? What was I drawing today? I am going to draw the jump scene. So this is an interesting, I'll give you guys a little bit of content. I need to change that head. That's a tiny bit too small. Wait, before I forget, while you guys are here. Yeah. Yeah. It wasn't that the head was too small, just the features were too small. Is that good? Hey, much better. Okay, so there's as I'm laying out the pages and looking at them in context to each other, right? There's an opening scene in issue 1 in which we introduce Athena for the very first time, and they are the most social media versions of themselves because they know they're on camera. It's from an experience perspective, audience reader, we are seeing them for the first time, so they are the most bombastic, the most glorious. Like if this was a feature film, it is like shot in like the best lens with the best color, you know? What I loved when I got to issue 3 and they need to do the team jump again because the context has switched. Like doing the team jump shot again has such a different meaning by the time I do it again in this issue. And I love mimicking. As a matter of fact, the next X amount of pages that I'm working on sort of echoes and harkens back to certain specific panels in issue 1, but with a different context. It delivers so much more oomph, you know, it delivers a different narrative than what you're getting the first time, which was like the popcorn gummy bears high fructose version of the experience. By the time you get to issue 3 and they almost do the same exact things, you're like, that is so sad. I hope. Like, oh my gosh, that is so stupid. You know, sad and stupid. And what are you guys doing? It's Alex Raymond, Alex Toth, Alex Nino, Alex Raymond. Alex Raymond did a old school strip called X99, but there was another one that he did where if you guys look up his books on Amazon, the second volume, I feel like that's when he hit his stride. On my best day, getting 8 hours, 9 hours, 10 hours of sleep, eating a good breakfast, and working out, I will never be as good as that guy. Alex Raymond is so damn good. Are we going to be able to get a bad guys cover? What do you mean, Rob? Like an alt cover for bad guys? Alex Raymond, Flash Gordon, Secret Agent X9. There was another one though, Rich, and those are all, yeah. The Flash Gordon ones were, I think, earlier. Definitely a Secret Agent X9 was about the same time frame when he got to, what is that serialized one that was in the newspapers, and I can't remember for the life of me what it's called. And if you say it, I'll be like, that's it. But I don't remember what it's called. They collected all those strips into one book. Volume 2 is when he hit his perfect stride, in my opinion, in penmanship and draftsmanship. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I don't know if I have one planned, but I definitely know for sure that the first issue is going to be like Arcathena, Arc Poseidon covers, for sure. And I think I have versions of the 3 covers for Arcathena in it that I was playing around with. Rip Kirby, absolutely, yeah. Volume 2, Rip Kirby. For those of you who are artists in the chat who want to see just a draftsman at a very high level of efficiency and proficiency. Rip Kirby is done so damn well. I think it's all done with like a brush, which is crazy. Eddie Winkler. Hello everyone, gonna try and drift off while I listen. Thanks for being here, man. I appreciate it. Okay, I can actually draw. Wait, do I have those covers available so that I can show Rob what 1, 2, and 3 look like? Did I empty out this iPad? Yep. I definitely emptied out this iPad. Wait. Nope, here it is. So that's cover C. I get distracted. I get distracted easily, yeah, for sure. That's cover C. I've yet to ink cover B, which looks like that. And then here's cover A. This is all my pre-production art inside this folder. And I think we're going to be offering those up to people as well. Like behind the scenes stuff. What else is in here? That's interesting. Oh, here's a canceled page. Here's a page that I left out and changed into something else. I changed it into a double page spread. So all of this stuff that's are inside these folders, like designs for the mothership, and what else is there? What do I have? As I easily get distracted. What do I have? Is there anything else in this folder? There's the head design for one of the members for ARC Poseidon. Here's the original team jump that I redrew. Here's killer performance as I was rendering her, so that I can give it over to Jules and be like, this color palette, Jules. Is it obvious that I'm avoiding drawing? There's got to be one here that has like 500 layers. Oh, here it is. This has got to be it. Yep. So I'll turn on and off the layer so you guys can see somewhat my original sketches for the teams before we took everything to color. Oof, look how rough some of this stuff is, eh? Oof. There's Grenadier. There's Gristle. There's the main bat. By the way, this is how professional I am as far as production is concerned. I've yet to name the bad guy. Is that bad? I don't know the bad guy name. It's professional. Like, I don't know the name of the Magneto of this book. We've unprofessionally referred to her as just Empress. It's really obvious. Eric is trying to be distracted, but he's building hype machine. Is it that obvious? Which is my favorite character from ARC. There is a biological creature on ARC Poseidon called bric-a-brac, right? And technically, bric-a-brac is all of like maybe, 13, 14 years old. On the murdered, I like to call them, like, if Arcathena is the social media team, ARC Poseidon is the murder team, right? And I like bric-a-brac because he's the closest thing to the reason why I'm on this team is because I'm super powerful, but I am in way over my head. He's effectively, so here's the reason why Bric-a-Brac was created, because as I was going through the script, geez Louise, it became dour. It became like, we're super serious and gritty all the time, and we do a job and we murder aliens, you know, and then we just like, every time we cut to Arc Poseidon, it just felt so heavy. It was like, it's like the gear shift. You could almost hear, like the narrative gear shift. You could almost hear the needle jump off the record, you know? And when I repurposed, or when I rewrote Bric-a-Brac to be a bit more lighthearted, and then it felt like the X-Men again. Like the thing that I was paying a love letter to, you know? Like, for every time that you get those super serious scenes, Nightcrawler shows up and just breaks the ice, you know, or like breaks the tension. And I needed that. And I didn't even know that I needed it until I read over it again as I was going through the bullet point script and then going over the thumbnails. I was like, geez, this is depressing. And then Bric-a-Brac shows up and I was like, oh, awesome. Awesome. You should do a making of a book with all this art, Eric. That would be awesome. There's just so much coordination that I'm hoping I can just sort of delegate to my art dealer, who can then produce all of the all the little premiums that you're talking about. I borrow ideas. I hope that I can be able to hand the baton to them and be like, you guys know my aesthetic, you guys know the kinds of stuff that I want, just loop me in near the end so that I can get final thumbs up, thumbs down on stuff and just like go forward. You know, he and I have a pretty great working relationship, a long-term working relationship, that he kind of knows what flies with me. So I hope I can, again, just sort of like take that off of my plate, put it onto somebody else who's going to do so much better with it, because they aren't as time constrained as I am. Murder team, tell me more. Yeah, that's the basic. You haven't heard the basic premise yet, Rob. Which is like, Arcathena is the public-facing social media team, but Arc Poseidon is the murder team. Arcathena handles the stuff that Arc, which is effectively the giant, the conglomerate and giant conglomerate corporation. The ARC Athena is the one that they put in front of the public eye, because they are social media darlings. But the people who are actually doing stuff behind the scenes are Poseidon. And I refer to them lovingly as the murder team. Your art dealer, it's with him that I have to talk to in order to get a commission art rate. Yes, you can get in contact with him via essentialsequential.com. His name is Jason Schachter. He's a really, really good guy. So go to that site, go to that website. I think there's a contact me or help button. He'll be happy to set you up. But I don't know if I'm going to be doing any sort of like commissions between now and end of August, beginning of September. My entire time is focused on this thing, you know? There you go. There's Belle. Eric's doing as much drawing as I am writing. Here's that.com. That's my section of the site specifically. How much writing are you doing, Rob, currently? Are you still in the middle of... Are you at what stage are you in? Are you a polished stage already? How far along is your script? Are you all done? Maybe this is something that you can't talk about, so forgive me if it's super secret. Undisputed Phoenix, which is this sort of like this gigantor human being in the far background. It's like, what's the best way to describe her power? She kind of dresses up like a Lucha Libre character. and her powers are predicated similar to, and I smile when I think about it, like similar to Captain Power. Do you guys remember Captain Power? You know, whereas like with our powers combined, they come up with this this magical being that is Captain Power that's supposed to protect the planet. Nothing like that, where it's like earth, water, fire, whatever it is. Not like that, but her power is strictly coming from this belt of hers, where she can engage like, you know, super size growth and then super strength, super speed, all that kind of stuff. But it's all on this in this tidal belt, similar to like Ric Flair. So anytime that she touches one of the buckles on the belt, it goes to the front part of the belt, and you know what power she's engaging. So it could be like the Gollum one, where she turns into like a 6 foot 7, or 7-story, 6-story foot tall being. And you can see that the killer performance is sitting on her shoulder. Rob is writing 2 words a day. Those must be really well thought out 2 words. Working on Replicator 4 and doing side story. Rob, my admiration, man. I don't know how you do it. Writing sometimes, especially for a guy like me that's not used to it, it's super painful. Because I get so confused very easily in as far as the structure is concerned. Yeesh. Everything shivers. Yeah, Captain Power is something. Yeah. It's weird that I made that analogy and have it be something else completely different. I couldn't think of a direct analog. I couldn't think of, like, I guess it may be similar to Mandarin's rings, although Mandarin's rings are all about just like energy, right? Like different sort of like blast and space and melt and whatever. I couldn't think of anything. Sorry. Captain Planet. You're stuck with Captain Planet. The challenge with drawing a large human being is I've never done it before, and I think it's really super fun. Now here's the thing, right? As the social media team, there are unfair. What's the best way to explain it? It was like they're being chosen as almost like box checks, like you tick off a box because they hold a particular sort of like set of qualities, but they are not meant to, like, they are not, it's like, the way I see it is like, the way I've compared them to is like Suicide Squad. There's that scene in the Suicide Squad movie where Amanda Waller was trying to convince heads of government that she needs to come up with her own sort of like secret team, and because Superman at any given time can go into the White House and take over the country, which makes, as far as a potential threat, makes a lot of sense. But then the team that she assembles is like the most low-powered D-grade team, D tier? Is that a tier? But it's like there's no way those people can, in a giant alien invasion, though the Suicide Squad is not the people that you put in front of, giant aliens that are excavating the earth because one of them can turn into a drill, And the awful thing is that Arcathena knows that. The team understands kind of the role they fulfill, sort of, kind of, Neil Adams drew an issue of Kaplan. We'll see you later. Thank you for that last note, Jimmy. It's interesting to think about Neil Adams and his drawing ability, drawing Captain Planet. That cheers me up. Thank you so much. Is that true, Rob? Is it true that Captain Boomerang is just a knockoff you? I'm gonna need to look up reference for my own characters. I don't remember what I did with this belt. This is a tough thing about trying to stream and trying to ink at the same time. And you can tell that I'm going back into like, I'm going back and repenciling certain areas because in as far as like having them as a loose sketch for the sake of composition, they're okay. They're serviceable. But now that I'm coming to ink it, I'm like, ooh, what does that look like? How does that arm work? Artist problems, man. By the way, I don't know how many people in chat are currently not subscribed to my channel. Hey, streamer mode. But if you're not, can I convince you to hit that subscription button? I would really appreciate it. As far as super huge beings are concerned, I have the opposite problem. In what sense? Like they're easy for you to do? Somebody has suggested to me the second stream, I think it was, that maybe there'll be instances in regards to this or a version of these streams in which I'm deliberate about telling people, hey, I'm just going to be drawing for the most part, because right now I'm favoring talking and engaging. I think that's very, very important, but maybe on some nights where I know I'm behind schedule production-wise, I may have to just be like, hey guys, I'm going to be drawing and looking up at chat on occasion. Or what's even better is if I can bring my good friend John Amore or my good friend Belle on call with me so that she may be able to read the chat to me and I can engage that way. What do you guys think? I think that's more elegant solve. I really am not a fan of just like you guys looking at the top of my head and me looking down. You know, I feel bad. So I would hope that there was somebody flying in the metaphorical co-pilot seat. I'm in so much of a niche drawing giant women, I have trouble drawing normal sized people. Oh, fudge, man. What an awesome skill to engage. Like the library, because we were so predetermined, you know, at least the superheroes that I grew up with were just like the idealized sort of body shape and form, that when somebody drew a blobby person, I think they just drew the caricature of it. But I think the challenge as an illustrator is doing, not immediately going into the caricature, but understanding where that caricature comes from, and then like doing my take on it so that it can squash and stretch. So the best example that I can think of is like if you think of like old school Disney, like pre-Disney Renaissance, you know, like if you take a look at the proportions of the people that they were drawing back in the day, there were definitely, you know, super stylized, but you kind of understood the premise, you know, because the animators and the illustrators and the craftsmen back then knew how human anatomy worked, and then they started pushing and pulling proportions. I think what started happening later on is we started taking those proportions for granted. Like I'd look at the blob back in the day. And I know it's not really all that important to be 100% accurate, but I think it started to become too much of a caricature where you couldn't understand the anatomy under, even though it's being pushed in such a stylized way. I'd like to understand it first before I start breaking all the rules behind it, you know? Just want to say thank you for the stream and answering questions. Can't wait for this post. I'm gonna hope you meant can't, because the can wait version is like, you slow down, Eric. I can wait. I can wait. Keep it in your pocket. You know, Rob, I was listening in on your stream earlier in regards to your, is it top 10? Top 10 covers? That was fascinating. That was great. I loved seeing the history of those covers, and it's weird to think of them as quote-unquote history, because they haven't been around that long, you know? Like, they're relatively new in context to everything, but it's so cool, the different covers that you guys, the different covers that you guys covered. Maybe I can work on something else. Not this page, I mean, but still Arcathena related stuff. I'm gonna have to find a way to negotiate that. Oh, there's a tighter page. Right? Tighter? How much drawing am I gonna be doing? Or like redrawing? A little? A lot? God, there's just some things, because it's been a while since I drew the, like, I bet you if I'd inked that page just as soon as I finished penciling it, it would be so much easier to understand what the hell I meant, you know? But right now, because I have a lot of shorthand, like, I'm just like, okay, I'll know what that is for later. But now as I'm looking at that page, I'm like, what did I mean by that? Is that a laser blast? Is that an explosion of blood and guts? What is that? I'm trying to find an easy page that I can take to a finish in about 10 minutes before I have to sign off. Is this an easy page? Nope. God, man. Help me, easy page. Help me find an easy page that I can ink. Is that an easy page? Nope. Yeah, okay, whatever. We're gonna ink. You guys not believe in my ability to ink a page in 10 minutes? Can we take bets on whether or not I can ink this page in 10 minutes? Is that going to be a bonus? A positive experience, or like a positive outcome for this page? Or a detriment? 10 minutes inking. I should be done with this book next Tuesday. Wouldn't that be awesome? Holy cow. Can you imagine if I could ink a page in 10 minutes? It's going to take me 10 minutes just to do these panel borders. Can you imagine how many books I would take to a finish, or how many books I'd finish annually if I could ink something in 10 minutes? Who the heck? Shoot. Yeah, okay. If you guys are wondering why I'm bothering to ink the panels first, is because it allows me to know where my cutoff is, right? Like, do not let this image bleed into this, because like this, especially in this one in specific, where it's just bouncing all over the place as far as like explosions and it's not a standard grid. So I could quite accidentally start drawing something and be like, oh, that's not even necessary because the panel that's overlapping that is covering it. And I want to be as efficient with my time as possible. So I do the painful task, semi-non-creative task of inking a panel or inking the panel borders first, so that I don't have to worry about drawing something in a place where I know that's going to get covered up. I'm also trying to be aware of exactly where the image is landing on screen while I'm streaming, which is a new thing. It's not new for me in a sense of like I've never had to do that before. It's new for me in regards to digital, because before, when I would stream on Twitch, I would just have tape on my drafting table when I would do it traditionally. I would just have tape on my drafting table to know, like, okay, just keep it under this tape at the top register and above this tape at the bottom register. But with digital, right, I still have those considerations, but now it's in a completely different sort of like presentation in Canvas. So I'm like, okay, how much is the audience seeing? Are they seeing me? Are they seeing everything on screen? Or at least as much as they can on screen? You made all the layouts already for issue 3, yeah. Issue 3 I have. I've written it all the way to issue 5. Issue 4 sounded like fun when I was planning it, right? Issue 4 is sort of it's going to be like the bombastic version of the storytelling. I'm limiting it to either splash pages or like 2 panel pages for 40 pages. I was trying to present challenges to myself as I went along. So issue 4 is just like nothing but big. Issue 4 is the fight scene. Do you guys remember that in comics? When you knew at the end of issue, whatever issue it is that you landed on, and they finally are face to face with the bad guy, and naturally it ends up being a cliffhanger, right? And you were so excited for next month. You were so amped for next month. I remember seeing, gosh, which X-Men issue was it where they go, and this is a Jim Lee drawn one, right? Like when they go out and meet and fight against the Starjammers, and the fight issue was the triple gatefold cover of all the X-Men dressed in the old school Xavier School for Gifted Youngsters uniform. They're blue and yellow, and they go out into space, you know? And the issue previous to that was just like they leave you on the cliffhanger of, oh crap, there's the Imperial Guard. And you're like, man, what's going to happen next, you know? And then when that triple gatefold cover came out, my brain leaked out of my ears because I was so hyped. I was so hyped for it, man. Like, I can't wait till this fight happens. And between, you know, Jim Lee and Scott Williams, and obviously Chris Claremont's script, that was such an amazing ride. And that's what I wanted to capture with that issue of ARC Athena, where at the end of this issue, I leave you in a really, what I hope to be a really sort of mouth-watering cliffhanger, where, you know, if I could have if there's an ideal emotion that I want you to walk away with by the end of issue 3, it's that, like, you're clasping your mouth, you know, kind of like, oh my God. Hey, Rich, thank you for swinging by. I really appreciate your company. Good night. Yes, Uncanny 275. You guys remember what that cover looks like, right? And I don't know if you remember the 2 issue, but it was like double page spread, and then you'd flip a couple pages and then double page spread again. And I remember feeling like, what can't Jim Lee draw? You know, like, I thought like that version of Jim Lee is Mike Tyson in his prime, where he just walk down the aisle, right, with just a terry cloth towel. They had a hole cut on top of it. No music, no nothing. Like, the previous guy would walk in and he'd have all the fanfare and all the cheering, and, you know, here comes Mike Tyson, and just walk out there with a terry cloth towel, take it off, and decimate that guy in the first round, and then leave. You know, but that's how I saw Jim Lee on X-Men, where he was like, what can't Jim Lee draw right now? I bet you he can't draw like a massive fight between like 50 people, and then you open this double page spread, and I was like, holy crap. And that's what I wanted you, you know, I wanted you to engage that muscle when you look through Arcathena 4. Eric, when you do a double page spread, do you orient the page vertical so that it can still be presented in digital readers? Or will you do a horizontal 2-page spread if you feel it needs to be the way? So that's a great question, Billy. I think that Arcathena is meant to be presented, or its original presentation is going to be comic book in printed form, right? So it's natural experience, if you pardon the term, is meant to be horizontal. There's been conversations as to how can we then take this into a digital space so that people who don't have, who in as far as cost effectiveness is concerned, that their best way to access, the best way that we can get this experience to them is through digital form. And I think that's a fair question to ask. You know, if it's cost prohibitive wherever you are in the world to have this thing be in your hands, we're having conversations of what it means to have you get your hands on it. But for the time being, it's meant to be experienced in printed form, which is a double page spread. How does that impact the experience of somebody who's going to read it digitally? Gee, I don't know. It would definitely be, and I say this sort of like heartbreakingly, but it would probably be suboptimal. There wouldn't be a good way to read it vertically, because it was never designed to be that way, you know. You know who designs a page great vertically because it's of the vertical experience of doing it on Webtoons is John Moore. Like he at this point, 3 seasons into Urban Animal, he just kind of knows the pacing and how to make it work. So there's a guy I could take a few cues from. Is it strange that I'm designing panel borders? Like I'm not just like slapping whatever shape that represents the panel. I'm literally designing it so that it feels like it's old school ink. Isn't that weird? Like it's the stuff that you would see from that issue of X-Men. Not weird. Like it's emulating dry brush, which this brush is already naturally meant to do. That's weird. I'll have to suck it up and buy it physical. I want to thank you ahead of time, Jaro. Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you. If you think digitally, you should try like Brian Hitch and shoot a octo page already. It's so digital. First, I am not coordinated enough to think of the experience as a vertical experience, right? I don't think I have the chops to be able to do it. And then speaking of chops, I'm nowhere near the vicinity of a Brian Hitch. So that sentence that you just said is just like a landmine of things that I can't do, which is design things vertically, design things as an octo page, and do it like Brian Hitch. That's a tall order. I'm going to fail on all 3 of those points. So designing a robot, I think the scale of these robots, I cheat it, you know, like I try to make it as tall as like 10 stories, but sometimes depending on how I need it to be, it may grow to be a little bit bigger, a little bit smaller. Designing a robot that is 10 stories big is only convincing based on the scale that you put it up against as a point of reference, right? So that's one of the challenges of a page like this, which is like this guy shoots him with a missile. This guy shoots one of the robots with the missiles and realizes it's to no effect, so that the robot that they never saw coming comes out of nowhere and just smashes them into the building the building edge that they're standing on, right? But when you see it in context to these panels, this robot, if I'm not careful about suggesting its scale in context of this building, which is technically no longer there because he's smashing it, like it's a really challenging shot to design, because you're like, oh, then it doesn't feel big anymore, you know, because you have it in context to all the other panels around it. So it's an interesting sort of like, oh, what is that shot? What is that angle? So that it still reads as big, you know? But again, next to all these other panels, it comes off as it could come off as small. So it was interesting. Ryan Benjamin has a great webcomic too. Right. On, what do you call it, right? On Webtoons as well, no? What I saw from Ryan Benjamin's webcomic is the campaign when I think they turned it into a book, when they retrofitted it to be a book. That was interesting. I do not envy the people who are tasked with turning a vertical scroll experience into a horizontal page turning experience. That's asking a lot. You're amazing in my own unique. Thank you, man. I appreciate that. Hey, I managed to draw panels this stream. That's got to count for something. That's got to mean something. actually. I'm going to give it 5 more minutes and then I'm going to excuse myself. These are probably the most engaging panels that you've ever seen anybody draw. Yes? Like you probably didn't, when you guys saw the notification in your guys' individual mailboxes, I bet you weren't thinking to yourself, am I going to see the most engaging panels that I've ever seen as a comic book reader, as an observer on stream? I bet you never thought that would happen, and it happened for you today. So, in a way, you're welcome. I'm kidding. I'm going to erase this panel because I want to land that scale. Forgive me. That was such a jerk thing to say. It makes me laugh. The thing is, it's not, I'm not going to say that it's not in my nature. I have very jerk asshole characteristics. Just ask John Amore. And just ask Belle, who have been there for most of it. I could read an entire comic of just those. I am very much a jerk. I just try to come off as professional as possible whenever I'm streaming. But in all reality, jerk. Sorry, I knew I should have adjusted this offline. As I was prepping this earlier, I was like, what can I work on during stream? My eye kept drifting to this panel because I knew for sure I didn't land scale. I thought I could sort of just hand wave through it, you know? But it didn't feel right. And really, there's nothing more annoying than being into a story because some awesome fight thing is like happening, right? Like the experience is building and building and it feels really, really good. And the experience is like, I'm totally immersed in this thing, right? And then the drawing breaks you out of that experience because it doesn't help to support the emotion that the author meant you to be in, right? So in this case, if it's supposed to be a giant freaking building, I'd better land the fact that it's a giant freaking building, or it's a giant robot crushing a building. I better land that. And then just, you know, yeah. I see that a lot in some of the comics that I've read, where it's something as simple as a storytelling, or it's as simple as an angle, and like I'm immersed, I'm totally into the story, I'm totally into like the pacing of what's happening, and then the artist will pick a wrong angle that doesn't go with the flow of what's happening in the narrative, and it's jarring, really super jarring. And the thing that I would hate to do is take you away from that take you away from that space by not choosing the right angle. And that's like a pet peeve of mine. Oh darn, team. We are now at 10:15. Which is right around the time where I need to excuse myself. Look at all this amazing work that I got done today. One panel that I redrew. That's so dumb. Actually, it goes back to the point that I was trying to explain the other day when I first streamed, which is I need to shift my expectations as to what I'm doing on stream, so it doesn't seem like I am not getting as much work done. This primarily is, as I see it, an opportunity to talk to as many people as I can who are interested about my work and the project that I'm doing, and on occasion show you a few drawings from that project so that you guys get insight into it, and maybe that'll help build interest to the point where when time comes you'll be willing to support me. So on that front, I hope I did my I hope I did my job to garner your guys' interest, and that there was something in there that made you go like, whoa, when this makes itself available, I'll be near first in line. And if that's the case, thank you ahead of time. Thank you. So yeah, I think that's going to be it for me for tonight. I'll do this more. I'll do this more next week. Actually, the current plan is to stream on Mondays and Wednesdays. I think that's sustainable long term. There may be instances there where I take the night off is when I'm not engaging as much. I'll have somebody on stream with me who'll be able to read off the commentary, and hopefully that'll do a little bit of I can delegate a little bit of the heavy lifting to them. So yeah, that's it. Thank you so much for being here, you guys. This is second official stream, and I am glad that the internet stayed on. I'm glad that the light stayed on, and most importantly, thank you so much for your guys' amazing questions. This has been a real privilege to be here, hanging out with each and every single one of you. I'm going to do a little bit of shilling. If you guys aren't already following me on my social media, I'd appreciate that. I update almost daily on my Twitter account. Twitter is good for something, and keeping connected to you guys is one of those things that it's good for. So you can find me there, and you can see all my social media information at the bottom right hand corner under @Arcathena on Instagram, on Twitter. And if you haven't already done so, please subscribe to this channel. I'd really appreciate that as well. And I think that's it. So again, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your support. Come back next Monday. If you find it in you, please hit that notification bell. I upload time-lapse videos with commentary every Sunday. There's a new one coming this Sunday, 9 a.m., 8:45, 9 a.m.-ish Pacific Standard Time. So another reason to hit that notification bell to subscribe. I think that's it. Thank you all. We'll see you on Monday. Everybody have a good evening or morning, depending on where you are in the world. That's it. Thank you. Have a good night.